You are helping your country and your family by accepting those tax-free $5,000 checks to help end this recession. The primary reason for any recession comes down to a shortage of money in the hands of the people. So obviously the way out of recession is to put money in their hands, which is what the American Monetary Act is designed to do and will do. The way out of this recession is now in your hands. If you want to read and understand exactly the details of how this legislation will end this great recession and the actual benefits for the American people under an honest monetary system that works for the people, not for the big banks, click on the two links that you see below. None of this will happen without your support and the support of millions more. This is representative democracy in action. Join this grassroots movement. Help your family and your nation by taking action now. And then my name appears because I sent this to you, but be sure to list your name, city, and state and phone number in place of mine before you forward this email to those on your email list. I think this email has a good chance of developing the support we need. The email then goes on to list instructions on how to forward the email to others and, excuse me, and the talking points to use in letters to Congress. I have asked Stephen to have copies available of 3 papers for you today. First, a paper titled The Way Out explains as briefly as possible why we are in this financial mess and also explains the many benefits people will receive from the passage of our legislation. Second, a speech to use to speak to city councils, school boards, and county boards of supervisors to gain their support. And third, a speech to be used at civic organizations like Kiwanis and Rotary to gain their support. As always, any suggestions for improvements in these or the email are more than welcome. Our effort to develop the support we need will not be easy, but it will be easier than just sitting and doing nothing and accepting what is happening to the country we all love. Can we as a group do this? Margaret Mead once famously said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." We as a group really can change the world. We not only can, we must. Taking back control of our monetary system is the absolutely necessary first step. But it is only the beginning of the changes which must be made. Let me list some of the other challenges that I see. We must also take back control of our government with publicly financed elections to take the power of big money out of politics. The Supreme Court's decision that equates money with free speech must be reversed. We must make our elected officials responsive to their constituents, not to those who finance their elections. We must reform our so-called progressive income tax, which lets the very wealthy pay a lower tax rate than the rest of us. Our entire tax system must be made progressive. Doing this is not class warfare, it is just simple fairness. As Warren Buffett recently said, "If there is a class war, my class is winning." In addition to a truly progressive income tax, in which all income, earned or unearned, is taxed at the same rate, we must have an estate tax that prevents the accumulation of too much wealth in too few hands, and a tax of 0.25% or perhaps 0.5% on stock transactions, and an annual wealth tax of at least 5% on fortunes of $100 million or more. The huge gap between rich and poor must be greatly narrowed in order to have a truly representative democracy. Great inequality and democracy are incompatible. We must actually have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Global warming must be addressed without delay. Mostly in the name of profit, we are destroying the earth. In order to make the changes we want, we must at least be alive. We collectively must stop destroying the only world we have. The use of fossil fuels must be greatly reduced. We must create a sustainable environment as well as a sustainable economy. We must also stop the present race to the bottom, which exploits both labor and environment and lowers our standard of living. We can replace it with a race to the top, which eliminates sex exploitation and raises our standard of living. We can do this by replacing all the so-called free trade agreements with fair trade agreements that level the playing field and take away any incentive to exploit labor or the environment, probably through the use of compensating tariffs. We must also withdraw from and then eliminate the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund, both of which are major players in the race to the bottom. And we must stop our government from subsidizing corporations to move our jobs out of the United States. This insanity must end. As John Williams constantly points out on his website, www.shadowstats.com, our government must stop manipulating economic reports. If you have never seen his website, go to shadowstats.com and take a look. Our government intentionally understates inflation, usually by 4 or 5%, which of course then overstates the gross domestic product also by 4 or 5%. We have been in recession for 9 out of the last 10 years, and we are right now, but not according to government reports. We can no longer tolerate a government which deliberately lies to its people. We must end the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and bring our troops home. Our nation must be an example of peace and prosperity to the world. We must stop trying to military and economically dominate the world. Christ gave us the answer 2,000 years ago. Love God and love one another. We are one people on one planet, and we must find a way to live together in peace. And the American Monetary Act is the absolutely necessary first big step in that direction. I'm also sick and tired of hearing that the Social Security retirement age must be raised and benefits cut, when that all that is needed to keep Social Security solvent, basically forever, is to remove the cap of $106,800 and make the very wealthy pay the same Social Security tax the rest of us pay. Most people do not realize that the wealthy pay no Social Security tax on income above $106,800. That means that a CEO making, say, $10 million a year, and many of them make that and more, pays a Social Security tax of only 1%. Everyone who makes less than $106,800 pays 12.4%, over 12 times as much. This is just another example of how our laws have been changed by the wealthy for their own benefit. We must maintain an internet with equal access to all, and we must find a way to once again have a press that represents the people instead of the wealthy. And eliminating the now enormous gap between rich and poor is a first big step in that direction. To accomplish these goals, we must have an educational system that is second to none, and it is open to all who have the ability and the desire for higher education. Ability and desire should be the criteria, not money. Our children are tomorrow's leaders, and they must know how to take our world in the right direction. We've been going in the wrong direction for far too long. And I'm also fed up with oil spill caused by corporate greed. I'm tired of CEOs who can't keep their pants zipped getting $50 million severance packages. And I'm sick of seeing executives on Wall Street get billions in bonuses after destroying the lives of millions of hardworking and middle-class Americans. I want them prosecuted and sent to jail. No one is being held responsible for what amounts to the biggest robbery in history, and the big banks are doing the robbing. As William Black says, the best way to rob a bank is to own one. And I don't want any more 2,600-page financial reform bills that are written by Wall Street, and no more 2,800-page health care bills that help the insurance companies far more than the people. I want universal, single-payer health care like every other industrialized country in the world already has. All these things and more are needed, and it looks like getting the job done is up to us. I don't see anyone else lining up to volunteer. I repeat, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. I hope and believe that we are the small group that will change the world. The American Monetary Act first, then everything else becomes possible. Unless we take back control of our own money, our nation is lost to us and our children and their children. We simply cannot allow that to happen. No more delays, no more waiting. The time for action is now. Thank you.